Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Journalism and New Media Studies, SOJNMS, Certificate Programs, Certificate in Community Radio, CCR, English, Course 1, CCRBJM 001 Introduction to Community Radio, Block 3 Content Development, Unit 12 Role of Developmental Agencies, 12.0 Introduction. Development agencies are development communicators who ensure a dynamic interaction between grassroots receiver and the information source. They facilitate participation of the target group in the process of development. It is with the help of development agencies that community radio programs have become a training ground for rural people to participate in development program. They act as the catalyst, initiator, mediator, facilitator, and negotiator. The nature and process of this involvement is defined by the type of development agency, its skills, and the processes that it adopts in the community to reach out to people and the various resources that it can has for such a development program. 12.1 Objectives. The objective of this unit is the following. 1. To provide an understanding of the definitions of development agencies. 2. To know about the role that development agencies in community radio with examples from India. 3. To understand the advantages and challenges faced by development agencies while working with community radio. 12.2 Civil society. Civil society is composed of voluntary, civic and social organizations and institutions that form functions in society as opposed to the structures of the state. Civil society refers to the arena of uncoerced collective action by people and their organizations and institutions around shared interests, purposes and values. Civil society also means a diversity of spaces, actors and institutional forms, varying in their degree of formality, autonomy and power. Many a times the word civil society is used for NGOs or non-government organizations. Civil society organizations can be registered charities, development non-government organizations, trade unions, community groups, women's organizations, faith-based organizations, professional associations, self-help groups, social movements, business, associations, coalitions and advocacy groups. Civil society organizations or development agencies can be donor agencies and implementing agencies. Donor agencies are also known as funding organizations, i.e. those who provide resources for various programs in the country or a region. In the context of community radio, they could be international organizations such as UNESCO, UNDP, Ford Foundation, or Indian donor organizations such as National Foundation of India, Charkha, etc. Implementing agencies are those who undertake the work at the ground level with the resources provided by the donor agencies. 1.2.1 UN agencies. UN agencies are, as the name implies, organizations created under United Nations Charter and international organizations with headquarters in different regions. Most often these are donor agencies who work in collaboration with grassroots level NGOs, offers resources like fund, technical support, office space, transport and the like. In case of community radio, UNESCO had taken a leading role in most parts of the world, helping to formulate rules and regulations, creating resource material for training and funds for setting up and implementation of initiatives. In India, before the community radio license policy had come into existence, UNDP had taken a lead role to organize seminars and workshops and take forward the movement for creating a space for community radio in the broadcasting policy of the government. UNICEF has supported some education and social development projects for implementation through community radio All these UN agencies work in collaboration with Government of India and many of their funds are routed through government department, though the work is implemented by NGOs selected by the UN agency. Kutch Mahila Vikas Sangathan Project Kunjazit Panchach Kutch Ji was supported by UNDP. The Namma Dhwani program by Mirada and Voices at Budhikote was supported by UNESCO. UNICEF supported Apno radio project from Banasthali. Community radio in Rajasthan, 1.2.2 NGOs. The term NGO has become familiar for people working in areas of development. It first came into existence only some decades ago when the international community such as the United Nations charted out a consultative role for organizations that are neither governments nor member states. Since then, NGOs mean a large variety of organizations which may be very different from each other in many ways. An NGO, broadly speaking, is that type of organization which is not part of the government. It has its own aims and objectives that it pursues, irrespective of the government's aims and objectives. Within the broad umbrella term NGO, the development sector has developed along these distinct lines. 1. Government-led sponsored NGOs. These are NGOs which are supported by the government as part of some specific scheme or program. 2. Charity-based organizations. These are engaged in philanthropy or public good or faith-based groups dispensing charity. For example, there are many organizations that feed the poor or distribute clothes to the poor. 3. Welfare organizations. These organizations work or reach out to vulnerable poor sections of the society and provide basic provisions like food, shelter, water, health, and education services. 4. Rights-based organizations. These organizations believe that people have a right to all the basic provisions of life such as food, clothing, shelter, education, health, employment, information, right of communication and freedom from all types of abuse and discrimination. Therefore, their work is neither charity nor welfare but activism. These organizations assist people to access services and their rights. They play the important role of a change agent for the community and people. They are sometimes referred as people's organizations, i.e. NGOs represented by people. 5. Corporate NGOs or social sector entrepreneurs. These organizations and agencies are operated by the private sector who wants to work on social issues. 1.2.3 Other organizations. A non-profit organization NPO or a not-for-profit organization is one that has been set up with the primary objective to support an issue or matter of private interest or public concern for no commercial use. Such organizations may be involved in various areas such as arts, charities, education, politics, and communication. Over time, people are more familiar with the word NGOs when they mean development agencies. Apart from the above following are the various associations of people that also fit into the definition of civil society or NGOs. 1. Organization of working people such as trade unions, farmers associations, fishermen's associations. 2. Associations of different communities, Dalit, tribal, caste-based organizations. 3. Production cooperatives. 4. Cultural organizations. 5. Organizations of women. 6. Students and youth organizations. 7. Religious and faith-based organizations. 8. Educational societies and associations. 9. Professional associations. 10. Community-based organizations including self-help groups and development agencies work at different levels depending upon the objective, vision and goal of the organization and program-specific projects. They work at the grassroots level, i.e. in villages and in urban slum areas. The second level is organizations that work at the state level, as for instance Voices in Karnataka, Aid India in Jharkhand and Tamil Nadu. The third level is organizations that work at the national and international level. These are more often funding agencies and work in collaboration with agencies from level 1 and 2. These include UN agencies and other large funding agencies like the Packard Foundation, Ford Foundation, Commonwealth of Learning, etc. There are also many agencies who work at the grassroots level but who also play an important role at the national policy level. 12.3 Role of development agencies in community radio. In the evolution of a community radio policy in India, development agencies, especially the UN agencies, have played three major roles: 1. In shaping the policy, 2. In providing funds for sewing up infrastructure and operations, and 3. In community mobilization. 1.3.1 Shaping policy. The use of radio for development was a milestone in public service broadcasting in India. The first People's Participatory Radio program was initiated in 1956 by UNESCO through a Farm Forum program. Although the interactive Farm Forum broadcasts from all India, radio remained an experiment. It opened new visions for innovation and experiment in development programming with people's participation in radio. The now famous ISRO programs in participatory communication in the 70s were also supported by UNESCO. The government understood the importance of people's participation in development using communication as a tool. With very lofty aims, a network of United Reach low-power radio stations were set up by All India Radio from the 80s. However, red tape and bureaucracy of AIR was a major hindrance, and these stations could not become the voice of the community as was envisioned in the policy. In the meantime, all over the world a movement for direct ownership of airwaves had started taking shape. Development agencies used radio as a tool for empowerment, introduced appropriate technology to build capacities of communities, and made them active participants in development. In our neighborhood, the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation transformed the Kotmale radio station into a model community radio with support from UNESCO. UNESCO was also instrumental in revolutionizing the radio wave ownership in Nepal, where Sagarmatha radio station in Kathmandu Valley became the rallying point for all those concerned with degradation of environment in the Himalayas. In India, UNDP helped to bring activists and government officials on one platform to discuss and create a policy for community ownership of airwaves. While the process of shaping the policy was in progress, many developmental agencies supported, funded and offered training at the grassroots level for community participatory initiative to demonstrate the positive impact of allowing communities to articulate their demands and needs and involving people in development activities. 1.3.2 Funding setup and operation. Development agencies in India began their interventions in the communication field in 3 ways. Funds were granted for communication initiatives that were community participatory, with provision for broadcast through AIR channels. 2. Funds were granted to set up infrastructure for community radio projects and support complementary development work in the area. These projects did not have provision for broadcast but used narrowcasting techniques like reaching people through cable connections, as was the case in Budhikote, Aruse of loudspeakers and cassettes for radio clubs, as in Kalagar project in Pondicherry. 3. Funds were also granted to organizations for training in radio production and hardware maintenance, as in Mandakini Ki Awaaz in the Uttaranchal. These were important steps in bringing people closer to mass media and also in outlining the role that development agencies should play in a community radio initiative. While managing radio projects at the community level, NGOs also learned how to bring technology closer to the people and build community skills in handling and operating equipments and program production. What was thought to be the skill of a select few working with AIR was demystified and brought right to the villages with common people and rural communities. There are excellent examples across the country of community participatory radio projects, which are managed by NGOs. 1.3.3 Community Mobilization. In Block 2 of this course, you have already learned that community participation and involvement are keys to ensure the success of community radio. In this arena, NGOs and various development agencies have played an important role. Most NGOs working at the grassroots level already had acceptance and reach within community homes. Their goodwill and familiarity helped to introduce the basic concept of community radio development using communication as a tool and the issue of ownership. Projects were undertaken to train community volunteers, explain different aspects of community IGNOU, the basic theory of operation by the community, for the community and with the community, and facilitate capacity building in radio production. Following are the key aspects in which agencies have helped to build community ownership in radio programs. 1. Identify volunteers and local talent. 2. Help identify issues that are suited for radio intervention. 3. Train volunteers in scripting, interviewing production, and post-production work. 4. Facilitate formation of listeners groups. 5. Undertakes regular monitoring of the programs and develop feedback systems from the community in order to make the radio programs relevant to community needs. 6. Implications of ownership were explained and community voices mobilized for a change in policy. 1.3.4 Content development. With wide experience and contact among communities, NGO sector is well acquainted with the local problems and needs, the local arts, music and traditions. An NGO worker knows individual potentials and can identify the community leaders easily. Because of the idealism of social service, an NGO also can ensure transparency in selection of participants for a radio program. These experiences and understanding help immensely in content development for a radio program. Development agencies have provided financial support for radio programs at the community level and also showed how flexibility in attitudes and innovations in programming can lead to greater outreach for community participation. This has resulted in a variety of experiments and innovations in community radio programs. We have on several occasions in this course referred to Kotmale community radio station in Sri Lanka without giving details. This is perhaps the best time to tell you about this extremely successful community radio that functions with funds and support from UNESCO. 12.4 Advantages of NGO involvement. Radio broadcasting for many years has remained the sole authority of the state. Without the capability to reach out to the people, all India radio programs had lost touch with the common people and remained out of reach for the community. As developmental organizations or NGOs entered the world of communication at the grassroots level, the focus immediately changed from information dissemination to participation, from a wide spread mass media concept to local community-centric media dealing with local needs and issues of local concern, and beneficiaries were given opportunity to take part in the programs. A case study: Kotmale FM community radio station is one of 4 community radio stations operating under the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. It is located in the central region of Sri Lanka in Mavthura, which is about 25 kilometers southwest of Kandy and a 3-hour bus ride from the capital city of Colombo. The Kotmale community Radio serves a target area of almost 8,000 sq km, which includes a number of rural settlements such as Gampola, Navalpitia and Thispain. The Mahaveli irrigation project resulted in resettlement of over 60,000 people who had become homeless due to the construction of Sri Lanka's second largest dam. They lost their crops and farming land. These people had to learn new cultivation methods and adapt to different conditions. Mahaveli Authority, the regional government authority, set up the Kotmale Community Radio Station in February 1989 with the objective of giving information to people who had been relocated. The station was also used to provide information about self-employment and health and was used to create a link between people who were now geographically distanced from one another. It operated in the community radio style, using community participation as its primary strength and interacting with community to understand the needs and concerns of the people. The finance for the project was provided by UNESCO and Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation provided the basic infrastructure and manpower. Over the years, the station has become a center for community interaction and local development program coordination. In 1998, with additional support from UNESCO, Kotmale added ICT component to its broadcasts. Information from internet was downloaded and provided on air to the community. Gradually, internet kiosks were provided for use by community, and now the e-Tuk-Tuk project takes broadcasting into the community doorstep. Most of these agencies, already working on different developmental projects, added community radio to their ongoing programs and helped to involve the community in participation and control of radio programs. As a part of their empowerment program, NGOs used community radio initiatives to offer opportunity to local talent, helped to build collective voice of the marginalized groups and inspired communities to come forward and demand ownership. It can be said that NGOs play the following key role: times ensure participation by the community and accountability to the community in a radio initiative, times bring in innovation and creativity in program by experimenting with new approaches and designs, times ensure inclusiveness I marginalized groups, children, women. 1.4.1 Learning to work collectively. Another important role of development agencies have played is in capacity building for work can make the organizations close partners in a project. Networking helps to ensure well-defined goals and outcomes for participation in the network. In partnerships, it is important to consider what type of partnership it is and what are the expectation, goal and responsibility for each partner. In a collaborative effort, roles and responsibilities are clearly defined, transparent financial accounting processes are set up, and everyone understands the purpose of the project and the partnership. When you start looking for partnerships, start with the information you gathered during the community mapping exercise. Use this list as a starting point for identifying potential partners. Make sure you cover civil society organizations and NGOs, organized community-based initiatives, business initiatives, government initiatives, media, developmental agencies and donors. Contact other community radio stations and community media in your region. There might also be telecenters, multipurpose community centers and other community information resource centers that you could network with. Partnership and networking take up a large amount of time and have to be strategically planned. Networks help us learn new things, meet new people, generate new ideas and access support when we need it most. Remember that even if we work at the local level, we are part of a worldwide movement of people who are working for sustainable development and social justice. 1.4.2 International partnerships and exposures. international development agencies have helped in putting community radio stations at the heart of the development process. We have just read about UNESCO support for Kotmale, resulting in integrated development in the region. Networking with international organizations like PANOS, AMARC, One World Asia have brought local community radio efforts on the line of vision of the international experts, resulting in greater flow of funds, offers of technical support, and exposure to best practices world over. These groups have supported movements for a more democratic and community-based media that foster cultural diversity, ensure access, control ownership, and free people from the passivity of mainstream media. Before accepting funding or network partnerships with an international organization, it is important to study the rules and regulations governing such collaborations. For instance, it is important to have the FCRA clearance for the NGO before it can accept funding from any international organization, including the UN agencies. Most international funding agencies like to work with NGOs with proven record of grassroots level interventions for at least 3 years. NPOs or non-profit organizations usually get preference. International organizations usually have their own framework of activities and expect fund recipient NGO to follow a set pattern which may or may not be useful in a local context. An intervention showing positive response and tangible improvement in developmental goals sometimes become a showpiece for an international agency, and such exposures can be counterproductive. 12.5 Challenges. Community radio campaigners in India are still struggling towards the creation of no-profit radio stations owned and run by local people in rural areas, which would enable marginalized communities to use the medium to create opportunities for social change, inclusion, and creative expression. This fight for freeing the airwaves have become a key challenge to unidirectional flow of communication efforts. Following are some of the challenges faced by development agencies in community radio. 1. Advocating continuously for enhanced democracy and right to community ownership of community radio. 2. Developing an alternative people's media with democratized media structures and access. 3. Policy advocacy related to broadcasting, which includes opening up the sector for direct community involvement, regulation of private ownership, support for community radio stations for improving access. 4. Although NGOs have helped build a listening environment and helped to narrow the distance between listeners and broadcasters, challenges in building participation in technical areas of radio programming still exist. There is still a large level of dependency on the NGO or the development agency for the sustainability and continuity of the program. 6. Lack of assured long-term financial support. The lack of continued support by donors for community radio programs often leads to discontinuity or results in discontinuation of a project midway. There is need for long-term support with issues of sustainability built in from the beginning so that the community is not pressurized to suddenly provide resources for the program. Community radio has been a long struggle. We are yet to see a truly community-owned radio program because of laws demand registration of the group desirous to own a radio station. This has led to radio stations managed by structured large NGOs and not fully owned by the various people's organizations, women's collectives, and groups in the community, which are often unregistered. 12.6 Summary. In this unit, we have learnt about the definitions of development agencies, the various types of agencies in operation. The second important aspect in this unit is the role of these development agencies in community radio programs and how they can play a very constructive role to ensure community participation and transparency and create the right environment for inclusiveness and building community skills and provide the interface between the community and the medium. Developmental agencies have supported the process for democratization of the broadcast policy and helped to make community radio operative by advocacy and use of locally relevant innovative tools and experiments. The third component in this unit relate to the advantages and disadvantages of development agencies. The primary advantage of development agencies has been to give voice to the community and improve access of development communication efforts to the common man, especially the poor, marginalized and women. The challenge has been the struggle by agencies and NGOs to free the airwaves and ensure true community ownership and control of radio stations by advocating for better broadcasting and ownership rules. Another important aspect has been to ensure that the NGO does not become the representative of the community but continues to play the role of the facilitator and catalyst in community radio programs. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.